to start on my left with Ami Gill. Ami is the Director of Advocacy for Physicians for Human Rights Israel. We call it PHR. PHR is an Israeli NGO that works on promoting fair and inclusive society in the where the right to health is provided to all. I'm sorry, I'm going to read this because I don't want to get it wrong. They stand at the forefront of the struggle for human rights, the right to health in particular, in Israel and in the occupied Palestinian territory. Ami is in charge of PHR's government and external relations with diplomats, international organizations, members of the Knesset, and members of the Israeli cabinet. Before coming to PHR, Ami worked as a lawyer and a public affairs professional with businesses, NGOs, and political campaigns in Israel and the United States. He graduated from Tel Aviv University and Stanford Law School. So I'm going to start with Ami, and I'm going to pose a similar question to everybody on the panel, but for Ami, I'm going to ask, from the perspective of PHR, and I want to start this with the question which we're hearing over and over in Washington. From your perspective, a group that has monitored the situation on the ground since the blockade was imposed in 2007, and particularly looking at the health aspects of it, is there a humanitarian crisis today in Gaza? And if so, why? If not, how do you discuss this? And really anything you want to say on that issue.
Thanks, Lara. Hello, everyone. It's exciting to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. I think the question that Lara just posed raises serious concerns that all of us on this panel share. And I think the underlying question there is basically, how can you define a humanitarian crisis? Part of the discourse, I think, which we now see, is trying to go beyond the debates which took place in the past, let's say, 3 years since the current closure policy on Gaza began, and trying to see where and how can we move forward. And I think identifying where exactly are we on this question? What is a humanitarian crisis? How can we define it? How can we cope with it if it indeed exists? Is a key question to understand the situation and come up with solutions. So I think, like in many other cases involving Gaza and Israel and Palestine, answer is complicated, and part of the complexity comes from the fact that for many years, especially since the closure on Gaza began, there have been attempts, first and foremost by the Israeli government, although I have to say by other parties as well, including the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas in Gaza, to make things complicated in a way which will make all of us confront these issues and not having an easy answer. And I think that's part of the problem here. We don't have an easy answer, but what we do have is information. And I think it's time to share this information and actually to have people decide for themselves whether or not this qualifies as a humanitarian crisis or any other type of humanitarian situation or any other type of crisis, political crisis maybe, which we can address. So I would like to touch on 3 major points surrounding health issues and access to health issues in Gaza. Just to provide you with a little bit of background, PHR, as Lara mentioned, has been working on right to health issues, both within Israel and in the West Bank and Gaza. And we've been following closely the situation in Gaza, especially in the past couple of years. We've been receiving approximately 100 requests from patients in Gaza every month, asking us to help with applying for the Israeli authorities to grant them exit permits from the Gaza Strip to receive medical treatment. Now, what's happened? The situation right now in Gaza is that the local healthcare system is extremely weak, and it has been going through a process of de-development for many, many years, especially since the closure began in 2007 in its current format. So, in certain fields of medicine, especially oncology, cardiology, and orthopedics, solutions are not to be found almost entirely within the Gaza Strip, and patients have to be referred outside of the Strip to receive treatment. So what happens is that in order to get treatment in either Israeli hospitals or in hospitals in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, people have to submit an application to the Israeli authorities, and then they're either approved or rejected. Now, one point which I wanted to touch on is the fact that in terms of access to medical treatment, Israel is currently trying to hold the stick on both ends. So on the one hand, hundreds of patients are being prevented from exiting the Gaza Strip every month to receive medical treatment. Their applications are either being rejected or extensively delayed, which results in the same fact these patients cannot receive medical treatment on time. Now, on the other hand, Israel also prevents doctors from entering the Gaza Strip to provide treatment there. So, for example, we just had a case where a delegation of senior physicians from the Musallam Center in Ramallah wanted to go to Gaza to perform eye surgery and cornea transplants on patients there. And the Israelis refused to grant them with entry permits to Gaza. So the result, again, being with, on the one hand, hundreds of patients being prevented access to treatment outside of the Gaza Strip, but on the other hand, doctors are also prevented from entering Gaza to treat patients there. The other point I wanted to mention is the fact that the Shin Bet, the Israeli Security Service, plays a significant role in the process of reviewing patients' applications for medical treatment outside of Gaza. Now, the problem here is that the Shin Bet, the Israeli service, summons many patients for interrogation at the Erez crossing, which separates Gaza from Israel, where it actually conducts an investigation aiming at some sort of a security screening of those patients, but they also use this interrogation for intelligence purposes. So patients are actually asked to provide information on their relatives, on their friends, their neighbors, their political affiliation, whether they support Hamas or not. And they're actually being told by the Shin Bet, by the Israelis, that their providing information is actually a precondition of their receiving entry permits to be treated in Israel. So it's very simple. Either you become a collaborator with Israel and get medical treatment, or you refuse. And then the option is just, okay, go back to Gaza and you won't receive medical treatment. And you can imagine how patients feel in that specific situation of coercion and extortion. And part of the problem being that Hamas is not only a threat in the background. What would happen to me, the patient? Should I cooperate? Should I collaborate with the Israelis? But it's a very concrete physical threat. Hamas has now has a checkpoint on the way to the Erez crossing where they actually warn people not to cooperate with the Shin Bet. So for Palestinians who seek medical care and have to go through the process of obtaining a permit from Israel, they find themselves in this very hard position of trying to satisfy the Israeli requirements or demand that they actually provide information, and on the other hand, feeling the pressure from local authorities within the Gaza Strip.